Subject Social Studies. Class 7. Lesson Plan, History. Lesson 6 Towns, Traders and Craftspersons. Q1. Who was Christopher Columbus? Ans. Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer. Q2. Who was Jean-Baptiste Tavernier? Ans. Jean-Baptiste Tavernier was a diamond merchant. Q3. What do the ruins of Hampi reveal? Ans. The magnificent ruins at Hampi reveal a well-fortified city. Q4. Which technique was used to make the Chola bronze statues? Ans. Chola bronze statues were made using the lost wax technique. Q5. From where did Gujarati traders bring gold and ivory? Ans. They brought gold and ivory from Africa. Q6. When did Vasco da Gama reach Calicut? Ans. Vasco da Gama reached Calicut in 1498. Q7. What was the capital of the ancient Chola kingdom? Ans. Tanjavur was the capital of the ancient Chola kingdom. Q8. How was water supplied to the city of Tanjavur? Ans. Water supply for the city of Tanjavur comes from wells and tanks. Q9. How did temple authorities use their wealth? Ans. Temple authorities used their wealth to finance trade and banking. Q10. What is bell metal? Ans. Bell metal contains a greater proportion of tin than other kinds of bronze. Q11. Name two famous guilds of South India from the 8th century onwards. Ans. Manigramam and Nanadesi. Q12. How did European gain control of the sea route? Ans. European companies used their naval power to gain control of the sea trade. Q13. What is emporium? Ans. Emporium is a place where goods from diverse production centers are bought and sold. Q14. Name the regions with whom the guilds of South India mostly traded. Ans. These guilds traded extensively both within the peninsula and with Southeast Asia and China. Q15. Who lived in the black towns in cities such as Madras? Ans. Merchants and artisans, such as weavers, lived in the black towns in cities such as Madras. Q16. What is Bidri? Ans. The craftspeople of Bidar were so famed for their inlay work in copper and silver that it came to be called Bidri. Q17. Why has Surat called the gate to Mecca? Ans. Surat has also been called the gate to Mecca because many pilgrim ships set sail from here. Q18. What were the textiles of Surat famous for? Ans. The textiles of Surat were famous for their gold lace borders, zari, and had a market in West Asia, Africa and Europe. Q19. What was the significance of Surat hundis? Ans. Surat hundis were honored in the far-off markets of Cairo in Egypt, Basra in Iraq and Antwerp in Belgium. Q20. Where is Hampi located? Ans. Hampi is located in the Krishna-Tungabhadra basin, which formed the nucleus of the Vijayanagar Empire, founded in 1336. Q21. Name the spices which became part of European cooking. Ans. Spices grown in tropical climates, pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, dried ginger, etc., became an important part of European cooking. Q22. Why did the rulers endow temples with grants of land and money? Ans. They endowed temples with grants of land and money to carry out elaborate rituals, feed pilgrims and priests and celebrate festivals. Q23. From where did the Gujarati traders imported spices, tin, Chinese blue pottery and silver? Ans. Gujarati traders imported spices, tin, Chinese blue pottery and silver from Southeast Asia and China. Q24. Why both the Dutch and English East India companies attempted to control Masulipatam? Ans. Both the Dutch and English East India companies attempted to control Masulipatam as it became the most important port on the Andhra coast. Q25. What is Hundi? Ans. Hundi is a note recording a deposit made by a person. The amount deposited can be claimed in another place by presenting the record of the deposit. Q26. What do temple town represent? Ans. Temple towns represent a very important pattern of urbanization, the process by which cities develop. Rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities. Q27. Who tried to play off Dutch and English against each other and why? Ans. As the Mughals began to extend their power to Golconda, their representative, the governor Mir Jumla, who was also a merchant, began to play off the Dutch and the English against each other. Q28. What attracted European traders to India? Ans. Spices grown in tropical climates, pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, dried ginger, etc., became an important part of European cooking, and cotton cloth was very attractive. This eventually drew European traders to India. Q29. What was the system of advances? How did it affect the life of weavers? Ans. Craftspersons began to work on a system of advances, which meant that they had to weave cloth which was already promised to European agents. Weavers no longer had the liberty of selling their own cloth or weaving their own patterns. They had to reproduce the designs supplied to them by the company agents. Q30. What were the reasons for the decline of Surat? Ans. However, Surat began to decline towards the end of the 17th century. This was because of many factors. The loss of markets and productivity because of the decline of the Mughal Empire. 2. Control of the sea routes by the Portuguese and competition from Bombay, present-day Mumbai, where the English East India Company shifted its headquarters in 1668. Q31. Why do you think towns grew around temples? Ans. Rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities. They also endowed temples with grants of land and money to carry out elaborate rituals, feed pilgrims and priests, and celebrate festivals. Pilgrims who flocked to the temples also made donations. Temple authorities used their wealth to finance trade and banking. Gradually, a large number of priests, workers, artisans, traders, etc. settled near the temple to cater to its needs and those of the pilgrims. Thus, grew temple towns. Q32. How was the architecture of Hampi distinctive? Ans. Architecture of Hampi was distinctive in several ways. The Hampi was a well-fortified city. No mortar or cementing agent was used in the construction of these walls, and the technique followed was to wedge them together by interlocking. 2. The buildings in the royal complex had splendid arches, domes and pillared halls with niches for holding sculptures. 3. They also had well-planned orchards and pleasure gardens with sculptural motifs such as the lotus and corbels. Q33. Why did people from distant lands visit Surat? Ans. People from distant lands visited Surat because of the following reason. Surat was the gateway for trade with West Asia via the Gulf of Hormuz. 2. Surat has also been called the gate to Mecca because many pilgrim ships set sail from here. 3. The textiles of Surat were famous for their gold lace borders, zari, and had a market in West Asia, Africa and Europe. 4. The state built numerous rest houses to take care of the needs of people from all over the world who came to the city. There were magnificent buildings and innumerable pleasure parks. Q34. In what ways was craft production in cities like Calcutta different from that in cities like Tanjavur? Ans. Craftspersons of Calcutta began to work on a system of advances which meant that they had to weave cloth which was already promised to European agents. Weavers no longer had the liberty of selling their own cloth or weaving their own patterns. They had to reproduce the designs supplied to them by the company agents. Craftspersons of Tanjavur were independent. They had the liberty of selling their own cloth or crafts. The Salia weavers of Tanjavur and the nearby town of Uraiyur produce cloth for flags to be used in the temple festival, fine cottons for the king and nobility and coarse cotton for the masses. The Sthapti or sculptors make exquisite bronze idols and tall, ornamental bell metal lamps. Q35. Why did Masulipatam become prosperous and popular? Ans. The town of Masulipatam or Machilipatnam, literally, fishport town, lay on the delta of the Krishna river. In the 17th century it was a center of intense activity. Both the Dutch and English East India companies attempted to control Masulipatam as it became the most important port on the Andhra coast. 2. The Qutub Shahi rulers of Golconda imposed royal monopolies on the sale of textiles, spices and other items to prevent the trade passing completely into the hands of the various East India companies. 3. Fierce competition among various trading groups. The Golconda nobles, Persian merchants, Telugu Komti Chettis, and European traders made the city populous and prosperous.